Only this is the verbatim federal courtroom testimony of the Sean Diddy Combs trial, as reported by Inner City Press the moment finally. Arrived after months of speculation court documents and mounting public pressure. Sean Jay-Z Carter stepped into the courtroom not as a mogul, not as an icon, but as a man defending himself against disturbing allegations, and as a defendant for Diddy with Diddy's world unraveling and freak-off parties, now a part of sworn testimonies. Jay-Z was dragged into the storm by association. His name was attached to rooms he denied entering, events he claimed never happened, and victims he insists he never met. But how would he defend himself in front of the jury, the media, and the culture? What would he say when the whole world was watching? This is the moment Jay-Z testified the courtroom had just settled. After a long morning of legal back and forths, the prosecution was preparing to introduce evidence linked to Cassie Ventura's testimony. Diddy's lawyers shuffled papers, half bored and overly confident. That's when the doors opened, not quietly, not with warning, but deliberately, the way you walk into a room knowing the truth is finally about to catch up with the people who've been trying to outrun it. Jay-Z entered wearing a midnight navy suit tailored so sharply, it might as well have been armor. He didn't look left, he didn't nod, no entourage, no Beyonce, no rock. Nation team just him. A living legend stepping into a courtroom that hadn't expected to see him. Not like this, not on the witness list, not under oath. Gasps filled the room. The gallery stood halfway in reflex when journalist dropped her pen. Cassie Ventura, seated behind the prosecution, leaned in to whisper to her attorney. Even the judge raised her brow slightly. He turned toward the entrance and didn't blink, his eyes locked onto Jay like he was watching a ghost he buried. When years ago rise from the dirt, this wasn't planned. Not by the press, not by the public. Jay-Z had requested a sealed session for his statement, but the court overruled it. Transparency, that was the ruling. And now Jay was about to give the performance of his life, not with lyrics, but with memory. He took the stand. He swore his oath, and the courtroom filled with federal prosecutors, entertainment, journalists, and attorneys who once negotiated million-dollar deals. At brunch tables leaned forward like they were listening to the first verse of a track. They weren't supposed to hear his voice, calm, controlled, but tight, like a rope pulled in both directions. I want to make it clear, he began, I came here because silence ain't an option no more. And with that sentence, everything changed, because when Sean Carter speaks, not the mogul, not the rapper, not the billionaire businessman, but the man behind it all, it's not just a testimony, it's a reckoning. Jay-Z didn't waste time. He didn't come with denial as his opening weapon, he came with context. Man, that was even more dangerous. Yes, I was invited to Diddy's events. Yes, I attended, but let me be clear. What I saw and what I was told were two very different realities. He said those words carefully, deliberately. His lawyers sat stiff, the defense looked confused. Was this helping? Then was he flipping the answer? Would come slowly, piece by piece, as Jay-Z told the court something nobody expected. Is all the setups, the NDS, the confiscated phones, the back rooms with curtains. He never went in those rooms, I never signed those papers, but I knew. He paused. I knew something wasn't right. That sentence broke the courtroom wide open, because it wasn't just an admittance of being present, it was an admittance of witnessing the mechanics of the machine. Diddy allegedly built a machine that Cassie, Don, Richard, and others had described in excruciating detail. Jay-Z turned toward the jury. You see, in this industry, there are parties, and then there are parties, and the ones I started walking away from. Those weren't parties anymore. They were systems, designed experiences, the kind that aren't about fun, they're about power controlled. The prosecution asked, did you ever witness anything criminal? Jay-Z hesitated. Number, not directly, but I saw enough to know. He shouldn't be there. He described one event in 2015, a party in Miami supposedly for Christian Combs' birthday, where he says things got strange. They had masks, he said, like real masks. One man walked past me in leather with nothing but high heels on. People laughed. I didn't, because I knew that man looked scared. Jay-Z said he left early that night. He said he called a driver and didn't wait for the scheduled car service because I didn't want my name attached to whatever that was. Then the prosecution dropped the photo. A leaked image, blurry but authenticated, of Jay-Z, Diddy, LeBron James, and Beyonce in a room with a man in a latex mask kneeling on a velvet pillow. Jay-Z looked at it in silence. I saw that moment, he said. I was told it was performance art. I didn't laugh. I didn't stay. He looked at Diddy. You knew people trusted you. You used that for the first time Diddy's jaw dropped. Then came the part that turned Jay-Z's testimony from damage control to destruction. He told the court about a private conversation he had with Diddy. Late 2018, just after whispers of investigations started circulating in the industry, according to Jay, Diddy called him to get ahead of something he'd owed me. They're coming for me. You gotta be careful who you stand next to. Jay said he asked Diddy point blank, "Did you do anything I can't come back from?" And Diddy allegedly responded, "It's just parties Jay just experiences nobody gets hurt unless they want to." Jay's voice cracked slightly. That was the last real conversation. He looked at the courtroom. I stopped answering his calls. After that, Jay said he began distancing himself, skipping Revolt events, pulling out of collaborations, even instructing Roc Nation reps to keep our brand away from whatever Puff's got going. Then, the prosecution revealed something else, an email exchange between Jay-Z's legal counsel and an anonymous party from early 2020, in which Jay's team is warned that NDAs from past events might be weaponized against those who were present, even if they weren't involved. Jay nodded. I knew what that meant. They're going to use silence as a shield. I wasn't about to get caught behind it. Have finished the third part of his testimony with a sentence that made headlines. Before the court even recessed, he used to be my brother. But now I see who he really was and who I almost became. By standing too close. The room was silent and the fallout just beginning. As Jay-Z sat forward in the witness chair, his hands folded. His voice came out strong but undeniably emotional. The courtroom had already been rattled by the allegations and rumors circling Betrayal, but now the weight shifted. Jay's wasn't just here as a celebrity being dragged into another scandal. He was a husband, a father, and a man defending everything he had built. I need to speak about my family. He began looking directly at the jury because when my name gets dragged, so does theirs. The room was silent, jurors leaned in, reporters stopped typing. Even Diddy, who'd been scribbling notes on his legal pad for most of the morning, looked up. Jay-Z described the toll the accusations had taken on Beyonce and their children. Blue Ivy's old enough to read headlines now? He said, "She came to me asking what a freak-off was that's not something a father should have." To explain, they described how after the initial lawsuit named him, reporters swarmed outside their home, paparazzi camped outside Blue's school headlines, blurred fact and fiction, turning his life into a tabloid war zone. He continued, "My wife has stood by me through everything. But this was different. This wasn't business drama or career competition. This was a nuclear bomb dropped on our family. And the worst part, it was all based on a lie." He then turned to the specific claim that he and Beyonce attended the alleged Miami freak-off in 2015. Jay-Z reached into a folder and pulled out flight records. On the night in question, we were in Paris. Said it was our anniversary. We stayed at Hotel Plaza. One, I've included the hotel receipt photographs, video timestamps, and multiple eyewitness accounts we weren't there. The prosecution reviewed the material. The judge asked the clerk to confirm the dates. Everything checked out. Jay-Z had receipts literally, but he didn't stop. There, he called out the culture of clickbait and unverified gossip that had allowed these rumors to thrive. When did we stop demanding proof? He asked. The room, when did accusation become conviction? He emphasized that his reputation wasn't just his own, it wasted to his wife's, his children's. High's entire legacy, I've spent decades building something clean, something that lifts our community, and in a single headline that gets smeared with no evidence. Beyonce was mentioned several times, but Jay-Z was careful he didn't lean on her fame or status. He spoke of her as a mother, a woman blindsided by allegations. She had no part in, "I came here to defend truth," he said, and to make sure no one, not even a billionaire, gets away with burying people in lies. Jay-Z's composure never cracked, but his voice took on a sharper edge as he addressed the next major claim, the infamous Miami party hosted at Gloria and Alio Estefan's mansion, where he was allegedly seen by multiple witnesses during Diddy's alleged freak-off event. I want to be very clear. Jay-Z began, "I have never in my entire life attended a party at Gloria Estefan's house, not in Miami, no, anywhere." He unfolded several documents, a timeline of his activities from that week supported by security detail, logs, transportation manifests, and charity event programs. He walked the court through every hour of the date in question on the night of the alleged party. "I was in Los Angeles. I was attending a charity dinner hosted by the Sean Carter Foundation at the Peterson Automotive Museum," he said. "Here's my speech transcript. Here's the guest list. Here's a photograph with the mayor." What's especially striking about Selena's handling of the situation is how much it mirrors her personal growth. She's spoken openly about her journey towards self-worth, trust, and boundaries. And this situation, with all its internet chaos and speculation, became a live case study in how she's applying that growth in real time. Fans who've been with her since the beginning could see the evolution. No messy fallout, no dragged-out subtweets, no reactive energy. Instead, she created space. Then, when she was ready, she re-emerged, not with drama, but with grace. Some fans even celebrated the moment, calling it exactly what her therapist would recommend. Others praised it as a model of emotional intelligence we rarely see in celebrity culture. Psychology TikTok even joined the conversation. Creators with millions of followers broke down the situation, calling Selena's silent, boundary-driven response a sign of real inner work. One mental health content creator put it best. "Notice how she doesn't do the public call-out post? That's growth. It's the kind of approach that resonates, especially in a culture where online conflict often gets rewarded with engagement." Selena didn't play into it. She simply moved on her own terms, and that's what made the whole saga stand out, because it wasn't just about whether Benny and Teresa crossed a line. It became a broader reflection on how people navigate tension, trust, and communication when millions of eyes are watching. It's also important to remember Selena and Benny's relationship didn't just pop up overnight. It came after 5 long years of her being single, by choice. After her high-profile, emotionally complicated history with Justin Bieber, she took time to heal, to rediscover herself, to rebuild. And for fans who'd walked beside her through that journey, Benny wasn't just the next boyfriend, he was the reward, the one who showed up after the heartbreak, the partner who met her at a time when she was whole, not broken. That's why the idea of betrayal, real or not, hit so hard. To fans, this wasn't just a celebrity romance. It was a symbol, proof that you could go through hell and still find something steady, something safe, something real. So when drama threatened that picture, even in the form of a vague TikTok or a silent unfollow, it activated something deep in the fandom. A protective instinct, a fear of history repeating itself, because Selena had earned this peace. She'd talked openly about trust issues, about the struggle to let people in again, and seeing anything that even hinted at a breach, it felt like watching someone mess with the one good thing she fought to build. That's what made this moment different. It wasn't just about drama. It was about everything that led up to this point and what it could mean moving forward. Even with Selena's clear effort to maintain boundaries around her private life, the public lens never really turns off. Every move she makes, especially in her relationships, is magnified, analyzed, and immortalized in the discourse. Even when she doesn't speak, the narrative keeps writing itself. And in this case, all it took was 2 small actions to trigger a social media firestorm: a TikTok of Benny and Teresa at dinner, and a quiet unfollow. That's it. That's the whole plot. No statement, no scandal, no hard receipts, just vibes, timing, and a fandom with a long memory. Yet somehow, those 2 moments were enough to generate headlines, trend hashtags, and divide an entire online community. Some immediately assumed betrayal, others begged for context. Many were somewhere in between, caught in the emotional whiplash of watching a potential friendship fracture in real time. And when no one involved offers clarity, that emotional uncertainty becomes the story. The narrative fills itself in. Fans start projecting, analyzing, arguing, not because they're nosy, but because they're invested. Because Selena's journey hasn't just been entertainment. It's been relatable, healing, symbolic, and that emotional weight turns even the smallest shift in her story into a moment that matters. The polarized reactions to this saga weren't just about drama, they were about projection. Because when fans root for someone like Selena, they're not just rooting for a pop star, they're rooting for the survivor, the girl who rebuilt, the woman who chose herself after being publicly broken. So when anything threatens that storyline, even vaguely, it feels personal. And let's be honest, this moment never came with proof. No confirmed betrayal, no confession, just speculation, wrapped in silence. But still, it spread. Why? Because we live in a time where narratives move faster than facts, where timelines don't need confirmation to crown a villain or a victim, and in Selena's case, that reality is amplified. Everything she touches becomes lore. Every photo becomes a clue. Every friend becomes a character. Even Benny, who's largely kept things goofy and low-key, got swept into the intensity, as did Teresa, who suddenly went from loyal bestie to potential traitor in a matter of days, all because of a few seconds of TikTok footage and an unfollow, and in all of it, no one said a word, no Instagram Notes app, no press exclusives, just silence, which in today's climate is often the loudest thing you can do. And that silence, it wasn't just strategy, it was power. Selena, Benny, and Teresa, all three chose not to engage, and by doing so, they shifted the weight of the moment back onto the public, onto us, the observers, the interpreters, the ones desperate to define what we were seeing. Because when celebrities stay silent, fans don't stop talking. They talk more. And in this case, the silence wasn't just about protecting privacy, it became a mirror, reflecting just how far parasocial relationships have gone. Just how emotionally attached people have become to someone else's personal growth arc. For many fans, Selena isn't just a singer or an actress. She's a symbol of healing, of emotional evolution, of self-respect earned through heartbreak. So, when any element of her life feels unstable, especially her love life, it doesn't just spark curiosity. It triggers protectiveness, defensiveness, emotional memory. And that's what made this dinner plus unfollow combo such a perfect storm. Not because it proved anything, but because it didn't. It gave just enough to stir the algorithm, but not enough to settle anything. It fed speculation without confirming a single thing. It left everything open, and in 2025, that's all it takes. As 2025 continues to unfold, one thing's certain, this moment won't be forgotten. Whether it turns out to be minor friendship drama, a misinterpreted dinner, or something deeper, this story has already left its mark on the fandom. It's been analyzed, memed, theorized, and unpacked from every angle. And still, no one really knows the truth, but maybe that's the point. Because in the world of celebrity, not every story has a resolution. Some just fade, others evolve behind the scenes, and a few get immortalized. Not for what actually happened, but for what the public felt about what happened. And this moment, it hit harder than most, because it wasn't just a narrative twist. It was a test of everything Selena has stood for: emotional clarity, healthy boundaries, and learning to protect your peace without performing it. Theories about Benny cheating on Selena with Teresa, they remain just that. Theories, no hard proof, no confirmations, just online sleuthing, creative speculation, and a fandom reacting to breadcrumbs. And yet, for many, it still meant something. Because when your emotional investment runs that deep, even the suggestion of disloyalty is enough to fracture your trust. That's the paradox of modern celebrity. The closer we feel, the further the truth actually gets. This entire saga was a reminder that when you're famous, even grabbing dinner becomes a headline. Even a tap of the unfollow button can send algorithms into meltdown. And when you're someone like Selena Gomez, whose story of recovery, trust, and self-worth has been witnessed by millions, every relationship becomes part of a larger narrative. That's the cost of vulnerability in the spotlight. That's the reality of fame in a hyper-online world. Still, through it all, Selena's choices have stayed aligned with the person she's grown into. She doesn't perform chaos. She doesn't owe the timeline explanations. She sets boundaries, takes space, and lets her piece speak louder than her posts. And that's why fans ride so hard for her, because she's not just surviving fame, she's evolving through it, with grace, with dignity, with emotional intelligence that's becoming increasingly rare in this era of oversharing. Whether or not the Benny-Teresa drama had any teeth, one thing is clear: the perception of betrayal can sometimes cut deeper than the act itself. In a world driven by clicks and comments, sometimes all it takes is a song, a dinner, and a silence loud enough to echo across the internet. And in that silence, millions of people filled in the blanks with their own fears, hopes, and projections. That's the real story. Not what happened, but what we needed to believe.